Hello everyone, this is the Jacksonville History Show produced by the Jacksonville Historical Society and the University of North Florida Department of Communications. I'm Alan Bliss of the Jacksonville Historical Society and the University of North Florida, and our guest today is Dorothy Fletcher, the author of Historic Jacksonville Theater Palaces, Drive-Ins, and Movie Houses, published in 2015 by the History Press. Welcome, Dorothy. Thanks for being with us today. And I wonder if you can tell us what it was that inspired your interest in this book.
I think probably more than anything was my father's love of movies. We spent countless hours watching the Saturday matinee on, one of the channels in town. And I fell in love with Errol Flynn and Gary Cooper and all the greats. And of course, he would take us to the movies and the drive-ins, and we just had a wonderful, wonderful experience with him doing that. So it just seemed, since I had written other history books about nostalgia, theaters would have to be part of that landscape, I suppose. And so I've really enjoyed rooting around and learning all about these wonderful places that I had been part of my childhood.
Where did you find yourself doing research to fill in the material for this book?
Well, aside from the fact that I had many, many friends who helped me out with this particular research, I lived in the library for days at a time, it seemed like.
That's the Jacksonville Public Library?
Oh yes, the one downtown was my particular favorite because they had mini microfilm and things like that, so I could go through all the newspapers, and they have a wonderful morgue of Life magazines and things like that. So it was really neat because I felt like I was going back in time a lot of times. And it was really fun to almost find myself back in those wonderful places that I remember. The very first one, for instance, would have been the Center Theater, which originally was the arcade. And the picture that we have of that has these wonderful old automobiles in front of it. Now, I never went there. I wasn't even born when when it was the arcade, but I was around 10 or 11 when it became the Center Theater, and by the time I'm 14, I would catch the bus and go downtown and spend the day with my best friend watching Lawrence of Arabia, of all things, in the Center Theater. It was the most glorious experience of my early teenage years. I also remember, actually, when it reopened as the center, it premiered Ben-Hur, and everybody got a nice leather program, which nobody seems to be able to find. They could tell me about it, but they couldn't find it. I had hoped I would be able to put my hands on one.
Maybe someone listening to this show will find one in their closet.
I would love that. That would be the best. And it was really sad because the center, when it went out of business in the 80s, just faded away and one day collapsed. And I think it was in 2003, which is such a sad thought that all those wonderful hours just poof, gone in a very sad way. So, of course, the Florida Theater, which everybody loves and everybody has a story, is just so rich in its history. It started off, the property upon which it was built was a police station at one time. So, it went from a very sad and serious place to a very happy, wonderful place. The picture that we have here is of the Wurlitzer organ that used to rise up out of the floor, and everyone would sing along with the bouncing ball. Of course, that also was a little before my time, but everybody that I talked to who had been there just loved that. They just thought it was magic. And so, and then of course there's the Elvis story, you know, which everybody, Jake Godbold told me he and his future wife were in attendance when Judge Marion Gooding was there, making sure that he didn't swivel his hips too much and upset the morals of the city. But it's just such a dear story. And of course, Mayor Godbold had said that it was one of his crowning achievements was to save that building. He even would walk there during his lunch break with his aide or his clerk, and they would eat their lunch while they watched the man repair the stucco in the inside. I thought, isn't that sweet? Now, there was another kind of interesting part of the city of which I knew very little until I was an adult, and that was the La Villa area, which was the segregated part of the city. And it became a very thriving, wonderful community with theaters, and there was the Globe, there was the, oh gosh, the Knights of Pythias, there were just so many things. But there also was the Strand, and it was at the, oh golly, I can't remember the corner, but it had been on the property that is now part of the La Villa School of the Arts. And I got to interview Richard McKissick before he died, because he had worked there and been a manager, and he put up posters and all of that sort of thing to promote the movies there. Interestingly enough, the thriving La Villa area stopped thriving when integration happened. And so in a way, what the sad thing that caused it was also the good thing that destroyed it. Do you follow what I'm saying? In other words, La Villa thrived because of segregation, but then, which was bad, but then integration made it fall apart, sadly enough. Then on a different part of the city would be the Alhambra, which was opened when I was in high school. And there's so many wonderful stories that I could tell you there. One of my favorite, though, had to be about Betty Grable. She came to town, and let me see. It was her last performance, live performance, that she ever gave was at the Alhambra. She was only supposed to play for 4 weeks. She ends up staying 8, and she packed a full house every night. Wow. She just was wonderful, but she became very ill, and of course she knew she was ill when she got there, but she was a trooper. She kept on. She was in Born Yesterday, and but they also said she would smoke and drink and play poker with the stage hands. She was just a all-around wonderful person, as I gather from people. Then another institution that's still around is the Little Theater, now known as Theater Jacksonville. And I just love this picture. Of course, you got your old automobiles, but you can also see that there are no buildings next to it. You can see houses all the way back behind it, which is kind of, it's like a standalone, and it's a beautiful, beautiful building, of course. I have some very fond memories of our time there. Robert Arley White, as a matter of fact, was he played the MC for cabaret, which I thought was fabulous.
Oh.
His whole first period class was in the front row. He told me that was kind of intimidating, I guess. And then drive-ins. What can you say? They were just the very best.
And certainly an artifact of the past now in Jacksonville and almost everywhere.
Absolutely.
Well, your book is available for purchase locally,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And this is time for me to say thanks to you, Dorothy Fletcher, for being with us. Thanks also to the University of North Florida, Department of Communications, and thanks to you, the viewers, for watching. For more information, please visit the Jacksonville Historical Society's website, jackshistory.org, or call us at area code 904-665-0064. And until next time, we are history.